This is episode 109, and we're going to talk about something very interesting called the problem paradox. How can you turn your problems into blessings? The question that we ask first is, why is life so difficult? Why is it such a series of one obstacle after another obstacle? Why are things so complicated in life? And coupled with that is, how can you take some of those problems and turn them into the blessings that they're meant to be? Now, just remember what we do on this channel. We talk about how breakthroughs are possible when you take the principles of the kingdom of God and couple the action component with the principles of science. In episode 106, I explain why our lives are so full of problems. So, obviously, I'm not going to go back there. I'll just provide a summary. Essentially, it all started in the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3 when men chose to disobey God. And what happened is God pronounced punishment on him, but one of those was he cursed the ground. And he said to mankind, from this day onwards, life is going to be very difficult for you, which means obviously life was not as difficult or it wasn't difficult before that. So he says the ground is going to struggle to produce food for you. So that's the beginning of that curse. The ground is cursed, mankind is not cursed. And in science, we call that entropy. And the episode 106 explains that in a lot more detail. So, what we're talking about today specifically is the problem paradox, how you can turn your persistent problems into blessings. Why do we have problems? I've already explained, but what role do problems play in our lives? One significant role that problems play is they are a mirror to us, they reflect to us things that we're not doing right. And in a sense, what problems are saying to you is, this is working, do more of it. This isn't working, stop doing it or modify it in one way or another. That's essentially the primary message that problems communicate to us. It's a mirror, it's a reflection. This is not working, this is working. Do more of what's working and do something about this which is not working. Because for as long as this continues not to work, it's going to be very difficult for you to move towards achieving goals that are important to you. That's the primary message of what problems are communicating to you. Of course, there are secondary benefits of problems, and those include, they help us to become more innovative, they help us to become more creative, they help us to say, okay, that means I didn't understand this matter better, so I need to go dig deeper to have a much more profound and better understanding of the situation. Problems also make us a lot more resilient and they make us aware of things that we otherwise would not be aware of. For example, if you have pain here on your shoulder, it means something's not right. And you otherwise would not have been aware that something wasn't right. So the problem, the pain in this case, it makes you aware so you can begin to do something about the situation. But what's important about problems though is problems are like a wrapping that you need to remove before you can get to the juicy part inside. It's like an egg or an oyster. This shell needs to be cracked open. And those problems, that especially the ones that you encounter on a repeated basis, where there's a pattern, they telling you, you are not listening to what I'm saying. This is what the problem is saying is, you need to see that this is not working and you need to do something about that. That means you modify the situation or you modify your actions or you do something about. Sometimes some problems are such that, this is not important to me. So you basically just stop doing it. But in most situations, what we're talking about here is where you encounter problems towards achieving goals that are important to you. So obviously there, in that case, you're not going to stop, being part of that journey because it's important to you. Let me share an example of what happened to me. In the English class at school, remember when we do superlatives, we have fast, faster, fastest, or smooth, smoother, smoothest. So the word that came to my attention was when we had a test was, oh, it's beautiful. So I'd never come across that before. And I'm like, okay, beautiful. So naturally, fast, faster, fastest. I was like, beautiful, beautifuler, beautifulest. And I got it wrong. But I never went out to find out what the correct version was. So every now and then I would have the test, I would write the same thing and I would continually get it wrong. And at a point in time, I said, oh, this can't continue like this. Okay. So I started asking around from the guys around me, and they said, no, 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 you're getting it wrong. It's beautiful, more beautiful, and most beautiful. Now, from that point onwards, I was able to get that answer correct. But what happened? I did not know what the correct answer was. So, the way to find the correct answer, I had to go out and seek help. Now, how many of our problems continue because we are not prepared to go out and seek help? We sometimes think, okay, I have this problem, I can solve this problem myself. Now, there's nothing wrong with solving a problem yourself. It's just that sometimes it's a lot faster and a lot more efficient to seek help from outside. There's nothing stopping you from, when you have a headache, going to medical school, you know, getting the right qualifications to understand, oh, okay, so the reason I had that headache was because of this and this and this. But do you see how inefficient that process would be? You'd be wasting so much time. It's so much easier and so much more profitable for you in terms of time and more productive to go see somebody who is already trained, who will say, oh, okay, check, check, check. So the problem is this. So let's try this as a solution. So in a way, problems are signposts and guide rails. They say, if you continue on this path, things aren't going to work out very well for you. So it's important for you to take stock, because they're saying to you, look, you're on the wrong path. There's something you need to fix, or you need to change direction. And like I've already said, fixing it doesn't always mean you must do it yourself. Sometimes it's a lot faster and a lot more productive to go out and seek help. If we're saying problems are guide rails and signposts, that means they guiding us towards a particular outcome, towards a particular destination. What is that destination? According to the Bible, God's purpose for our lives has got two elements. The first one is to mature identity, our identity, into the nature of Jesus Christ, into the fractal copy of Jesus Christ. The second one is that happens as we continue to bring about the kingdom of God in our ecosystems wherever we are. Please go to episode 108 because it explains those two in great detail. Fundamentally, we're talking about identity, God's objective with your life. It's not for you to live, a carefree life that doesn't have any problems. Problems are inherent part of the life that you're going to be leading, because they are guide rails. They are telling you a story. That's what problem paradox is all about. It's saying we don't enjoy encountering problems, but problems are there for our benefit. We need to find out what problems are saying we need to stop doing and continue doing. And if we continue on that path, we will get to a point where we experience the juicy part after cracking open this shell. So if we're saying God's plan about your life and my life is to mature us into the identity of the Lord Jesus Christ, we need to understand what that means. Now, identity has 5 stages, and it's important to realize that these stages are about what you become, and excellence is related to becoming. So you mature in that identity, and that's where excellence resides. It's about this fifth step. Now, episode 102 explains that process in a lot more detail. I'll just summarize it here. Now, let me use an example that's very easy for people to follow, and that's the one of, say, becoming a husband. The day I become a husband, so I would have become a husband because I would have made a decision that I want to be a husband, and then I would have gone through some sort of means test. In this particular case, we go through the wedding ceremony or the wedding process, and we sign the document. So I sign the document that says, today I'm a husband legally. So that's the first part. The second part is I need to find out what the template of a perfect husband is. And I also need to make sure that I make this template a part of my mindset. I must breathe and think about it all the time. Okay, this is what a perfect husband would do in a situation like this, and so on and so on. And then the most important part, I suppose, it's the fourth one, which is the experiential stage, which is about you take this, that's part of your mindset, that's based on the template about the identity that you are, a husband in this particular case, and then you walk the journey, you do it practically. Now this is where problems are going to come in. So you starting out, let's use the example of driving. When you learning to drive, it's difficult at first. Oh no, the car stalls and this and this and this, but those problems are reflecting back to you that you don't know how to drive properly. So you need to practice more, and you need to seek guidance. I mean, you can figure your way and fight your way through, but it's so much faster to get somebody to guide you through the process. And this is what happens a lot at the experiential stage, because this is the critical part where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And as you meet problem after problem, and like I did in school, you ask people, what is the right way of doing this? And then you get better at it, so you move to the next level. So the experiential stage is about staggering all the way up, and you get better and you get better and you get better. And that's where the final stage is about maturing in that identity. So you mature in the identity at the end of the process. And this is where excellence resides. Think about it. If you play golf or you play basketball, so you first thing you would have said, okay, I want to become a great golf player or a great athlete, let's say. And then you need to figure out, okay, fine, to be a champion weightlifter, what do I need to do? So you need to eat right, you need to do this and this and this, and then fine. So this must be part of your lifestyle. That's what I mean. It's got to be part of your mindset. You have to live it daily. You can't do it sporadically. And then you implement it like practically all the time. It's part of your mindset because you want to be doing it all the time. And think about it, as you practice your golf swings, you practice your basketball throws, your soccer shooting and sort of things, then you become a better person, and you progressively move to that stage where great things happen with a lot less ease. Now, in the context of our salvation journey, the more we practice based on the feedback that we get, okay, I'm not doing very good when it comes to this one. So I need to find out, okay, how do I fix this problem? So how do I crack open that shell? That's the problem. So that I can get to the juicy part inside. This is the message of the problem paradox. The problems that you experience on a consistent basis are an opportunity for you. The problems have housed the blessing inside. Your responsibility is to figure out, how do I go through this? And like I've already been saying over and over, you need to get help when necessary. A simpler process of demonstrating that process is through what we call the adventure curve. We discussed this in great detail in episode 107. Now, the adventure curve tells a story from when you decide, I want to become this, that's the first stage of identity, all the way towards achieving the goal of being the best version of what this identity is all about. Now, with the adventure curve, it starts out with you saying, okay, fine, I want to become an engineer. And because you say, I want to become an engineer, you're already seeing yourself as an engineer, or you're imagining yourself as an engineer. And you're like, oh, the idea of you achieving, it's so motivating and you're so full of excitement. But what happens next is, as you begin to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do, as this is like the template that I need to follow, and you make it part of your mindset, the reality of the experiential stage is it's going to cost you. Remember, you this gentleman who's out of shape and you want to become an Olympic athlete. So what do you need to do? You need to go through training. You need to go through the transformation journey. This is what the adventure curve is about. So it's going to cost you, because you have to shed this identity of an amateur and put on the identity of a professional. Now, an amateur focuses on adding more things. Like, okay, think of driving, right? Okay, I need to learn how to change gears, or I need to learn how to check my blind spots before I turn. It's like you adding this and adding this and adding this, but it gets to a point where the stuff has become part of your mindset. And now, when you're a professional, The main objective is, what do I get rid of that is not productive in me getting to the goal that's important to me? So problems, again, are saying to you, and this is the message of the problem paradox, is because I've been on this journey, I started out adding and adding and adding. Now that I have moved further up the curve, it's more important for me to stop doing certain things because they are not serving me anymore. They are creating distractions and therefore creating different types of problems. So the whole thing about the adventure curve really says is, you start out excited, but it's like a downward journey because you have to go through the transformation process, and that is where you're going to experience and encounter one problem after another. Now you need to understand that the journey, to be part of the journey, you're going to go through problems, and problems are there to transform you. Now what happens is, there's a stage at the bottom of the transformation curve, of this adventure curve, where you feel like, oh, I don't think this is worth it, it's just too difficult. But that's the whole point. You've got to be clear why this journey is important to you, and you've got to be clear that I need to be making progress. I cannot be making in the same stage, same step, same place all the time. And one of the biggest problems that we have is, we always want to solve our problems. Now, like I've already said, there's nothing wrong with solving your problems, but it's very often so much more productive to bring in other people to help you. Now, look at people who are performing at the top of the game, whether it's golfers, it's basketball. They have coaches. Why do they have coaches? Because you get to a point where it's very difficult to move, or it's a lot slower to start moving all the way up. Now, having a coach, it's again, remember what we said problems are. Problems reflect you. This is not working. So what a coach would do is, okay, fine, why don't you try this way? Why don't you try this way? Or this is what's making it difficult for you. Maybe you need to lose a bit of extra weight. Maybe you need to focus on this, and that's really the message of the problem paradox. It's saying problems are there to reflect to you what's not working and what is working. And you need to do more of what's working and less of what's not working. Now, how do you begin to change what's not working into something that can work very well for you? You bring in external help to walk you through the journey so you can become the better version of yourself. Here's something else that's very interesting. With your car, you service it about 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending on how much you drive. And the reason you do that is what the Japanese introduced called preventive maintenance. What they say is, you need to solve a problem before it becomes a big problem. Now, what your problems are saying to you is, this is not working. And the right approach would be to say, okay, fine, this is not working. What do I need to do to fix this problem? Okay. And then you go there and like, oh, okay, you learn the right skills, or you bring in the right person, or you figure out what the best way is. And then next time you encounter the same situation, you are able to solve the problem. In fact, you may not even experience the problem because you would know how not to have a problem, but you're always going to be experiencing a different type of problem. Now, if you approach your problems the way you service your car, you do preventive maintenance, it becomes so much easier to minimize a lot of the problems before they become big issues. Now, I'm thinking here in the context of marriage. Think about it. How many marriages would be not only saved, but would be a lot more exciting if the couple would do preventive maintenance? They would go see a therapist or somebody they trust, maybe once or twice a year, to say, hey, this is what's going on in our relationship. And what typically happens in relationship is, one person is saying the same thing, is saying something, the other person is not hearing what they say. So having a third party there might make it easier to say, okay, this is what your wife has been saying all the time. Oh, really? And because sometimes it takes a third person to say something that somebody else has been saying all along. And that's really the value. And you can begin to deal with some of these issues before they become very serious issues. So that's again is the message of the problem paradox. It's saying deal with a problem before it becomes a big issue. Don't let it sit there because it's going to crystallize and become so much harder to deal with. Now, again, let's go back to the adventure curve. Remember, you start out very excited. Woo, things are going to work out. And then the reality of the journey, that's experiential part of identity, where you start dealing with problem after another problem, because that's how how you are being transformed. But at the bottom, that's where we call that zone of despair sometimes. A lot of people end up there like, oh, I've been trying and I've been trying. I don't think this is for me. But it's not because it's not for you. It's because you are not prepared to do the work that's required. Or sometimes you don't know what the work that's required is to solve the problem, in which case you need to bring in outside help. And like I'm saying, that's why so many professionals who are succeeding have coaches, because they know from experience and they know from research that on your own you can only get to this level, but you need somebody else to help you see the blind spots that you otherwise would not see. So in a nutshell, what we're saying is your problems are a mirror that shows you where things are, and the important message is for you is and to you is take those lessons seriously and make a decision. Oh, okay. For the past 3 months, I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to like learn this song on this piano, but I keep making a mistake. Bring in somebody in who can help you. This is how you can perhaps work around this problem. This is how you can solve this problem. Again, we're saying the problem paradox message is that problems are like that shell that houses something very valuable inside. Now, your responsibility is to crack open that shell. And if you cannot crack open by yourself, feel free to seek help. I think it's important that I want you to get across is we are so addicted to wanting to solve our problems ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But just be aware that sometimes it's a lot better to get outside help to solve the problem for you. The question now is how can you best take advantage of the message of the problem paradox? There are a number of things you can do. First and most important, begin to see problems as guide rails and signposts that say, okay, you need to look at the situation differently. You don't have the capability to do this because you're doing something wrong. You need to figure out how to do it correctly so you can move on to the next step. So you can move on to the next step where we'll have a different kind of hurdle. And as you continually dismantle those hurdles, you become the better version of yourself. It's that becoming that we spoke about. It's you move from this stage to the next stage to the next stage, and you become a professional. Remember what we said, the difference between an amateur and a professional? An amateur focuses on what do I add? What do I add? What do I add? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get to a certain level as a professional, the focus now changes. It's not what do I need to learn? It's more what do I need to get rid of that's complicating my journey. It's very important. So what we're saying is become aware. It's a mental shift. It's a paradigm shift that you need to go through. You need to begin to see problems as your servants. Now, they are your loyal servants who are in a way better than a mirror. Because when you look at a mirror, there's what's called lateral inversion. Your right hand looks in the mirror like the left hand, right? So but problems don't have that problem. Okay, problems don't have that problem. That's very interesting. So the issue is problems will reflect the unpalatable truth to you. Here you are stuffing up, and the decision is yours. You're going to continue doing that which is not working, or you're going to do something that may work. Now, obviously, sometimes you don't know, okay, this is not working. I know for sure. Would this work? Then you're going to try. That's where the value of understanding principles comes in, but that's where working with other people comes in. So, number one is it's a mindset shift. Begin to see problems as servants, loyal servants who are there to help you. That's the first part. The second part is, what is the message that is contained by this problem? What is this problem telling me? Because if you keep getting it wrong, it means you're doing something not right. And you need to figure out what that is. And number three, which takes us back to that process of maturing in your identity, it's saying, now that you know what you're doing wrong, you need to act. You need to put it in practice, get better at it, get better. Sometimes you can get it right the very first try, but very often, if it's something very complicated, you may need to practice and practice and practice. That's the experiential component, right? So obviously you would have said, oh, okay, so I've been getting this wrong. So you fix your template. So your template was perhaps not accurate. Okay, you say, okay, fine. Now I'm gonna change this one, which means I'm gonna start getting to work a lot earlier, so I can, start doing certain things. So whatever the situation may be, and then you make that part of your mindset. You practice, you practice. Oh, this is working. Okay, fine. So now it settles in as, okay, this is how I'm gonna do things going forward. But it's the action. There is no way you're gonna learn how to do things better without actually practicing and practicing, because the more you practice, the more it becomes second nature. So it becomes easy for you to carry that activity out. And the fourth element is about preventive maintenance, we spoke about, is don't always wait until you have a crisis. Sometimes it helps to sit down with other people and say, hey, how are you doing this? No, I'm doing it this way, and I'm doing this way. And sometimes people can show you, no, no, no. If you're doing it this way, you're going to end up hitting your wall here. And that's really what we're saying is, it's important to build into your system a way of seeking guidance before the issues become too critical. And number five is pretty much like number one, in the sense that it's really about mindset. Now, one of the biggest reasons so many of us end up in that zone of despair where we like, oh, you know what, I wanted to achieve this, but I'm just giving up, is because we are not prepared to do the work that our problems are showing us we need to do. And this is very important, because let's look at finances, for example. How many of us knew that as we started working, it was important to start saving? Well, I certainly knew that, but I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? I thought, maybe I'll catch up later. We always have a reason. But the principle is saying, this is what you need to do. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with the problem down the line. And this is one of those problems where we say, if you look at the pattern of history, if you look at how things transpire, if you look at your own story, what are the problems telling you you need to do? Which direction are they saying, don't go this way because you're going to meet with shipwreck if you go that way? Obviously, the list is by no means exhaustive. There are things that we could add. But the important part is this: the problem paradox message is, problems are your servants, problems are your friends, problems are a mirror that tells you this way things aren't going to work very well for you. Your responsibility is to, like, okay, I get it. So what do I need to do differently? And as you continually follow the guidance of these problems, obviously they're showing there's no solution here, turn this way. That's where you find solution. It becomes easier to use problems, your servant, remember, as someone who will help you to get to the juicy part. You've got to crack open this shell so you can get to the oyster on the inside. You've got to crack open this egg so you can get to the yolk and the white part of the egg on the inside. That's what problems do. Problems are not our enemies. Problems are telling us stuff. I hope you got value out of the video. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.